I'm really enjoying the morning energy here. Good morning, everybody. There's Arthur's seat. Always seems to be there, doesn't seem to be going anywhere at all. I think it will survive the Fringe, but I'm enjoying it as my morning companion. And the grass is being cut, that's probably what you can hear in the background. And this is a reflection really with some advice about what I'm going to call marketing missteps, and it particularly relates to getting reviewers into your show. I'm recording this, I think it's the 11th of August this year at the Edinburgh Fringe. I don't really like the word mistakes or errors, so I'm calling it missteps. The first one is to invite reviewers to come and see your show and to offer them a free ticket or a complimentary ticket, which sounds like a really nice thing to do. And sometimes it's born of the mindset that the main reason reviewers are coming to see your show is a kind of scam to get a free ticket. You might not agree with that, and you might just think you're just being very kind and offering them a freebie, a gift. But actually it takes a long while to write a review for most people, and certainly across the reviewing spectrum, quite a lot of people would see reviewing as a professional activity. Some are absolutely paid to do it, and it's part of what they do, in the same as what you might be doing, bringing your professional work to the Fringe. So I won't call it an insult, I'll call it a misstep. But I would say don't offer a free ticket. And if you're in the mindset of somehow the whole purpose of this is a reviewer's getting a freebie, do imagine the idea they do actually sit down and earn their keep, and it's part of their work. So they're not after a free ticket, they're after a press ticket. And if you're going to make it easy for them to get a press ticket by saying, well, I can arrange it for you, rather than you having to go through some bureaucratic process with a venue press office, as long as it's okay for you to give them a ticket, I would just offer them a ticket, offer them a press ticket, and don't create the idea that somehow all they're doing is just trying to get in on a freebie. I think it's a completely wrong view of what goes on at the Edinburgh Fringe. Although I do acknowledge that more and more people are reviewing at the Fringe. Some are very new, untested and untried. And certainly some people say on their website, this is a way of making it affordable for us. We come up and we review shows and we get free tickets in. I think if you see that on their website and it's coming from that place, I think you can use that language. Then I would say it's not a misstep. But I'd certainly say if you want to have some of the professional reviewers in, misstep one is to offer them a freebie, a free ticket, as if you're doing them a favour, getting them in somehow. The second one, I think it can be a big issue halfway through the Fringe, and we're coming towards halfway through the Fringe and I'm recording this now, is to kind of trumpet your success so far too much. And if you're saying, as part of your kind of news, as you try and ask reviewers in, you say, can I let you know we're already selling out and I can get you in, we can probably squeeze you in. Reviews are really positive, we've got loads of 5-star reviews, will you come and review it? I think that's a potential misstep too, because there are so many shows here and many reviewers are trying to be a bit equitable and fair and have that ethic inside them, that if you're telling them you've had loads of great reviews, 5-star reviews and so on, and you over exaggerate that, I call it over reporting it, they might just say, unless they really want to see your show, you don't need a review. And if you're doing so well, why do you want my voice? Now, I think if you're in an individual conversation with press that who have shown interest in your work, I think it's all right to continue that dialogue and actually say, we're still waiting for your voice, we'd love you to come, we want your opinion. I think that can work. But I'd say overall, just be careful kind of hyping up and reporting how brilliant you are and how successful you are. I think there's a good news story you can put out that's a bit more low-key than that, but the danger is simply you're inviting a reviewer not to come and see your show, because there are lots and lots of other shows with no reviews that they might prioritise first. So just be careful about, I'll use the language, showing off a bit too much. I think it might be better to simply focus on, we'd love you to come and review our show. You might even draw attention to their expertise, that you've noticed in the past that they're interested in certain kinds of work and your work fits that bill. And I think you're just inviting reviewers in, not on the back of some kind of trumpeted statement about how brilliant and full up and already loaded with reviews that you are. The third one I've mentioned before, particularly if there's a sort of desperate... I've just got to share that view with you again, I just love that. The use of hype and talking about your amazing show, your groundbreaking show, your brilliant show. I'm hearing the word up here for some reason, not fantastic. I'm seeing it in reviews and I'm certainly seeing it in publicity. And so I think a key thing there isn't to over deliver on the words you're using to describe your show. And so just keep it real, keep it authentic. And I think in a kind of very inauthentic Fringe that can happen when everyone's hyping and over marketing, don't use those words. Just keep it honest and keep it believable. And I don't think reviewers like feeling they're being oversold, and it just creates a kind of cynicism and a mistrust. One other kind of misstep which can happen is around news as well, and it's around being professional. And I think I've mentioned it before in terms of having a separate account for all your personal stuff compared to your professional stuff, and it's simply to have out there images of you having such a good time that it looks like the partying is more important to you than the show and the work. And to say that's why I think it's quite important with use of hashtags on social media and in what you're sharing, is to only allow the stories to go out professionally that you want to be professional, showing that you're serious about your work. So just once again, that's about timing as well, and about when you release your social media. It's quite good to send out a press release and an invitation to see your show on the back of some pretty good quality sharing on TikTok just before you send it, because it just creates that opportunity that the last thing that's seen by a reviewer isn't you all kind of drunk and not really focusing on your work, and then what they get in their inbox is an invitation. And so that's all about scheduling posts and the likelihood of somebody seeing something, and particularly if you're putting your Instagram links and your TikTok links within an email asking someone to come and review your show, also inviting arts industry, that they might well click on that. And you should time it that what they're seeing are reviews, maybe some photo shoots, images of you in your venue that are professional. So that's around timing. I think that's kind of important too. I think finally the last one, which I think can be a misstep in reviewing, which is also around what you say within emails and on social media, is a sense of desperation. And I think it's all right to just calmly say to reviewers, we're still waiting to get professional judgment on our show, we'd very much like you to come. But I think if you put out those kind of desperate calls, we've had nobody in, our Fringe is going to be ruined unless you come in, you could see why that passion in some ways might feel quite appealing. And I think you can write quite passionately about your work, but I think you just have to be careful again that it's not kind of a guilt trip amount of language. And certainly I've had emails just recently saying, we met you at the Meet the Media and you still haven't been in, and it's looking like we're going to leave without a review. And there's kind of a sense of desperation, and it's almost like kind of hype by putting one on the reviewer to feel like they must come. And I don't think they like that kind of attention. I think that's all right if you bump into reviewers in the street, and you can approach them now if they're wearing a lanyard. If they didn't want to be talked to, they wouldn't have their lanyard on. They can tell you if they're busy. But I think the misstep here is particularly around that sense of desperation. You don't need to be desperate, you've brought your work here. But I think it's all right to be factual and just to say we haven't had any reviewers in. You might remind a reviewer that you met at some point and they said they'd come in, but don't write it in the language of a guilt trip. It might just be that they're very, very busy and you acknowledge that. And I think a reviewer is more likely to put you on their schedule if you acknowledge they might be busy. And I don't want that to be sort of the idea that they are the royalty and you're not. But I think respect at the Fringe is really, really important. And so just acknowledging that a reviewer, if they haven't got back to you and they said they would, is keep that gentle. It can be firm, but it shouldn't be too emotional. I think it's really, really important. Finally, I think there's a misstep as well. I'm getting sick of that word now. But I think one of the kind of missteps around getting reviewers in and so on is to get over desperate in terms of who comes in. And I'm certainly hearing that now, that some people are sitting very, very upset because a reviewer has a website. It can be a personal one, it can be someone they've never heard of, or it can simply be it's a bigger publication, even a newspaper, and you haven't done your research and you've ended up getting a reviewer in who actually hates your kind of work. And there is that word hate, I'm hearing it from reviewers. It really upsets me. I don't think it should be hating, so that's not the right line. But you get a reviewer coming in and you've been so desperate that literally anyone you've invited, and they have no idea what they're looking at, and you get that horrible position where you're sitting at your laptop constantly checking this horrible review, which of course simply pushes it up the search rankings, and what you really want is a different voice and another review. And the danger of that desperation is you start writing to reviewers, drawing attention to that horrible review as if they're going to sort of put it right with a good review. I think if you get bad reviews, just leave them alone. Don't obsess over them. It happens at the Fringe, and certainly if you have faith in your work, if you leave it alone, 99% of the websites, if you search for them, they're not there, they're not being seen by anybody. And I don't think normally most reviewers, if they're given a bad review, start trumpeting it out there to be cruel. So let it go and it won't be seen by anybody else. And I think all you do is you keep focusing on your work, and you keep sending out to the media that you'd like to come based on all the things I've just said earlier. So if there's an overview to this little video in my walk-in, it's don't panic, it's stay true to yourself and your work, it's don't be over emotional, certainly don't do guilt trips on reviewers, don't be over negative either, don't hype, which is really, really key, and overall stay calm, and reviewers will come in the end. And you just keep trying different things and go for a walk in the morning. Edinburgh's got nature literally at its doorstep, and I find if I'm feeling a bit stressed and overworked, the best thing to do is to make a friend with Arthur.